My name is Darren Sadge, and I'm very excited to be here today and to have this opportunity to share and talk about the subject that I'm most passionate about, and that is awakening into an experience of your own divine nature. You know, I had my own awakening experience some 31 years ago when I was in the presence of a meditation master from India, and it absolutely revolutionized my life. There was definitely a paradigm shift. So what today is going to be about is not a focus so much on what I experienced, other than that might help you understand what may be possible for you in the future, but it's more about your awakening and you having an experience, a personal experience of this divine presence within you. So I will later be guiding you into a meditation, about a 20-minute meditation that's designed for you to awaken and to have an experience of your own divine presence. You know, when we talk about divinity and divine presence, what are we talking about? I'm talking about awakening into that. Well, it truly is a being or a presence within each one of us that I feel is the same actually within us all. It is source. It is that divine nature that creates and sustains and maintains everything in this universe. So you can imagine if you wake up into that experience that you can have some pretty dramatic changes in how you see and view the world. And certainly that was the case for me. When you look at what you've been searching for in your life, are you searching for peace or joy or happiness or satisfaction? What are you looking for? Well, what I found with this awakening experience was all of that and much, much more, way beyond anything that I'd ever experienced in my life prior to that time. So I'm very interested in being able to support other people in this awakening process. And what I did find out or understand over the last 31 years of meditation and reading and studying and doing lots of different courses and programs, that it was possible for me to awaken others into an experience of their own divine nature. And it became very clear to me that it's not Darren Sadge, but I can be a vehicle for that. And that is incredibly exciting for me, because I feel like what better service can I give to other people than to allow them or to support them in this awakening, because as I mentioned before, everything that I had been looking for and much, much more is available in this awakening experience. So what I would like to also mention that at the end of the program, we'll take some time to look at how do we sustain this experience, because it's one thing to experience it, but then how do we sustain it? How do we maintain it? So I'd like to just kind of back up here for just a few minutes and talk about how did I come to this experience? How did this happen? And it was really, first of all, just being out there trying to figure out what it's all about, and understanding, or at least believing that I was programmed, like most everyone, to think that I was going to find the answer in my everyday life. Fact is, it was the only thing that existed. I didn't even understand that there was a possibility that there was this divine presence within me. there was no reality about that at all. So I started out with like most everyone, trying to find what I had thought was going to bring me happiness and joy in my everyday life. And early on, it seemed to hold great promise. It felt like, well, there is so much that I can do and see and experience that is really going to be, fun and enjoyable and be what my life is about. So, I got started when I was a youngster, thinking that, it must be about what I can learn about, from other people. And one of the best examples for me at that time was an older brother who was 17, 18 years old when my twin brother and I were maybe 7 or 8, and it looked like he had it all, because he had the girlfriend, he had the car, he was a very good athlete. In my small town, if you were a good athlete, especially at the level he played, because he was an all-state player, then you were like a local celebrity, and it really was a big deal in these small town communities. But what really fascinated myself and my brother even more was this car he had, and the car was the fastest car in town and the envy of all the other guys in town. And he could it was a faster car than even the Corvettes, these new cars that were coming out that everybody thought were going to be the very best. But in a quarter mile, he could actually outrun these other cars. So my brother and I were very, very excited about any opportunity we had to ride in the car, or have any be able to actually see how the car ran. So one day my mom didn't have a car to use, so she borrowed my brother's car, and before she took it, my older brother told her that to be careful with the car when she was starting it up, because you had to really give it a lot of gas because of this racing engine, and with the racing engine it would stall if you didn't keep giving it gas. So we ended up down at this A&W root beer stand for lunch, and my mom was after we were leaving, started the car up again and was trying to keep it running, and it ended up that would stall, and about the fourth time she got really frustrated, so she gave it a lot of gas. I mean, just really gassed the car, and it had so much power that we were in this parking lot. It was an all gravel parking lot, and it spun gravel all over the car, all over the other cars, and all over the parking lot. And my mom was absolutely mortified. She was so embarrassed. And my brother and I were like, "Yeah, man, this is great. This is the best thing. This is the best thing ever," because we'd had a chance to ride in this special car. But anyway, it was just that, at that time it looked like, if I could do that, if I could have the car and the girl and be a good athlete, then that's probably what it was all about. I would have arrived. What was interesting was that later, both my brother and I, my twin brother and I, were even better at sports, and my brother and I would laugh about, we even had better looking girlfriends. We didn't have the car, so that was one of the things that we didn't have. But I still, with all of that, it seemed like there wasn't, it still wasn't it. It's still like, what's next? Went on to, I want to tell one short little story about sort of my personality in terms of having everything in, being a perfectionist. Was that I remember a time when I was in the first grade, and the teacher had me draw this picture of an apple tree. And she said, no, just go ahead and draw the picture. So I drew the picture, and these apples were lined up like that. I mean, because that's how I saw things. They were all lined up straight across. And she said, no, just, redraw the tree and scatter the apples all over the tree. Well, I redrew the apple tree, and the apples were still lined up like that. And she really got upset. She had me stand in the corner because it's like, she thought I was being some kind of a jerk. And it was just how I saw it. So it was that was a major kind of how I was in my world, and how things needed to all be lined up and perfect. It was also, it was kind of interesting. The last maybe a couple of days, I had a friend of mine who knew me when I was like, in grade school, and when I was in junior high and high school. And he said, you were one of the most serious, and that if it wasn't perfect, you really got upset. And you didn't get upset with other people, but you always got upset with yourself. So I found it kind of interesting. It's like, wow, he was even aware of that. I didn't know that other people were aware that I was like that. But it's certainly something that kept plaguing me, and it was, it was always challenging not to be the very best. It was even like winning games, and it didn't make any difference whether it was a card game or a basketball game or a football game. For me, losing the game was basically saying I'm a loser. It wasn't about the game. It was much bigger than that. But that's just how I took everything. So, and also I depended on how well I did and how well I performed to get acknowledgement from other people, whether it was a coach or teacher or who it was. It didn't, it's like anybody out there that would acknowledge me. So I went on to, ended up, graduated from high school and with honors and probably, the top of my class. Not probably, I wasn't the top of my class. And also had athletic opportunities to go and play at a college level basketball. And then I ended up going to college and met my wife there, and she was really this incredible woman. And from there I ended up going on to dental school. And then in dental school, after dental school, I came back to my hometown to practice dentistry, and had a very successful, very good practice, lots of patients. Financially, we were doing very well. Had 3 beautiful kids that were very healthy and happy, and it looked like, the American dream. I was living the American dream, and yet it's like I'm still like, what else? Which seemed kind of crazy. It's like, you some kind of a spoiled brat, you got it all, and yet you're still complaining. But it didn't make any difference. There was still this voice back here that was saying there has to be something more. And when I look back on it, that had to happen so that I could find something more. And when I reflect on it, I also realize that the material world was never, ever going to give me what I was really looking for, because I was looking for this deep peace, literally something that was beyond what the mind could conceive of. But until I had gotten to a point where I was losing in terms of not being able to find what I really wanted, then I was motivated to go beyond that. I remember, looking around, like even in my dental practice, I had patients that there were multimillionaires, and they had a home in the Vail Valley where I live, in a ski area, ski resort, and maybe another home in Europe or another home on some island someplace, and yet they weren't necessarily all that happy. And many times it seemed like we often talked about them being these trust funders, because everything was paid for, but they also spent very often very little time with their kids, and some of the kids had some real challenges with drugs and alcohol and all that sort of thing, because it's a period that they really didn't get much personal attention. So it started like, wait a minute, this you can't get enough money. I remember listening one time to Jim Carrey, who's a well-known comedic actor, and he was giving this seminar or giving this talk at a graduation, and he said, "I wish that everybody could have everything that I have, and then they would realize that that's not it." And he said, "And I've got it all, but there's something more." And so he's definitely been a celebrity that's out there and really talking a lot about consciousness and awareness and peace and inner peace and the kinds of things that we're talking about today. And says, that's where I'm looking now. I'm trying to find that inner peace and joy from a different place. There was a Harvard study that was done, and they had about 700 men, and it seems like for almost 70 or 80 years, and they were trying to measure whether or not money was a factor in their happiness, and found that there was really no correlation between how happy they were and how much money they made, at least to a certain point. If they earned at least $75,000 a year, anything over that had no bearing. I mean, they could be multimillionaires or billionaires. It had no relationship. And that was what was really most important, were the personal relationships they had. And if they had just even one that was a real, somebody that would stand by them and that they could always count on, that was a major factor in their happiness. So probably another example of people that try to achieve and be really very high achievers are like professional athletes. If you want to be on a professional football team, as an example, only 2% of the college athletes actually make it onto a professional football team. And so you'd think, well, that would be enough. Well, once you make it onto the football team, then you want to be an all-pro. And then you'll find out, well, how many times has the last guy been, an all-pro? Well, 3 times. Well, then you need to keep doing that, and the ante just keeps going up. Once you finish your career, do you want to be a Hall of Famer? I mean, because if you're not a Hall of Famer, then you haven't reached the very top. A lot of times football players measure themselves also by whether or not they've won Super Bowls. So it's just that's that same thing, that same trying to get more and more and more, and it doesn't seem to truly satisfy us. But the pattern I started to see here was that we really aren't going to find what we're looking for in that realm, in the physical world, and even figure out something, because it's not something that we can necessarily figure out. Well, it isn't something we can figure out, at least from my own experience. So for me, what happened then was that it seemed like that yearning and that constant desire, like, well, what else is there, brought a source to me, or attracted this source to me in the form of this meditation master that I spoke of earlier. And how that happened was I had this friend of mine who was a massage therapist, and we were talking a lot about spirituality, and she said she was going to be at this ashram and spending time with this meditation master, so she would bring back something for me to take a look at if I'd like to see that. And I said, yeah, sounds fine, I'll check it out. So she brought back this magazine, and there was this huge full-page picture of this Indian saint, meditation master, an enlightened, I have to say enlightened being. And I couldn't get that picture out of my mind. It was like, man, who is this? I've got to see who this is. Found out she was only going to be in the United States for less than a week. And about 5 days later, I'm on an airplane flying out to meet this Indian guru, thinking, you have lost your mind. What in the world are you doing? You're this logical, left brain, scientifically based guy, and you're flying out to meet an Indian guru? It's like, really, what's going on? And yet, I knew that that was what I needed to do, and ended up, on the airplane flying out, and remember looking out the window of the airplane and feeling like I'm going home. There's this really deep sense of, man, there's something, that's going to happen that's pretty amazing. But didn't really know what it was, and later that started to make more sense. But ended up at the ashram late at night, probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I was exhausted and went to sleep that night, and woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was just wired. I mean, I couldn't sleep, so I thought, well, I might as well get up and check things out. So I went downstairs and started looking around to find out where this teacher, or where the meditation master's final program was going to be, and realized that it was going to be at this in another part of the ashram, and I needed to take a bus to get there. So I got on the bus and started heading over to the other area of the ashram, and that's when it hit me. I mean, it was like, whoa! All of a sudden, this wave after wave of this bliss. I mean, I don't know how, it's very difficult to explain it, because it was so powerful and so deep and meaningful, and it was full of everything that I had been looking for prior to this time. I mean, there was nothing missing. Even when I thought about, well, what about this? It just disappeared into that space. And I knew at that point that this was what I'd always been looking for. And since there wasn't, anything lacking, it was like a whole new world. Now I was feeling like I am full, I am whole, I am complete. So everything that I desperately was trying to find and experience before, especially in terms of performance, was no longer, it's like, guess what? No performance required. What? How can that possibly be? And yet, that was my experience. Everything that I was looking for was just there. It was like, especially the love, that's probably the most powerful, the unconditional and unlimited love. Because before I was doing everything I could to get acknowledgement, to find that kind of attention, and to somehow extract that. And now, it's no extraction required. Who I was more than enough. So I knew that I'd stepped into a whole new reality. And certainly after that, is like when I went home, I found I had this incredible amount of energy, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was no longer having to effort to get anywhere. Get where? Because I was fully satisfied with what I had. Some people had even asked me, well, if that's the case, don't you just feel like you want to just sit around and do nothing? Well, maybe for a while it felt that way, but what I actually learned was, when I didn't have to go out and achieve anything, then there was so much freedom and easefulness in doing whatever work I was doing that I used a third or a quarter as much energy, because it was it was right there, it was given to me. The other part of it too, I think that I want to kind of help you understand, is this whole idea of this unlimited or unconditional love. And not too awfully long ago, I had this experience, or this thought, that there was enough love in every human heart for the entire world. And it's like, whoa, how can that possibly be? And yet what came to me was, it wasn't Darren Sage's love, but it was this connection I had with this divine presence that had that amount of love. I mean, that divine presence is unlimited. So that I was feeling through myself, and then it became almost laughable that I would think, well, there's not enough. What do you mean not enough? Especially when I gave it away, even got more. So this is a wonderful game because it's endless. I remember also having this vision of this enormous space and all this sparkly energy in it, and that seemed to be that infinite source of love. And I mean, it was very powerful. And the reason I bring it up is not only was there unlimited love, but there was also unlimited all the other things I talked about, with peace and joy and a sense of satisfaction. It was all there as a given. And like I said before, no performance required, which was quite a head shaker, because that was not my MO before. I mean, I was a poster child for more and better and bigger and faster and whatever. But so that was an incredible relief. Certainly, when I came home too, I wanted to share that with everyone, and that seemed to be initially kind of a challenge, because I was a little bit over the top. It's a little bit like I sometimes said Billy Graham on steroids. It's like, this is fantastic, but it was wonderful to later, over like the last 30 years, to realize that I could serve as a vehicle for this awakening energy, that this transforming grace to work through me, and then allow or help support other people in their experience of this awakening. So that's what. The other thing I want to bring up is that later we will be talking about how do we maintain this experience, because it's one thing to have this kind of awakening, but then where do we go from here? And so we'll be talking about that next.
So I'm curious, you had this awakening, went to India and to see this guru. Do you feel like this was a past life pilgrimage, that you went back to a place you've been before, or was there some specific lineage or connection with this guru? Do you have any sense of that, or what do you think was the thing that broke you open there?
I don't know that I necessarily felt like there was some kind of lineage. It just definitely felt like, since I was searching and really wanting to know, that's what drew this experience to me. Could very well be that there was a pattern there. I couldn't say that I recognized that at the time. In hindsight, that's a good question, because probably so. It feels like that's very likely to be the case. But at the time, I couldn't necessarily say that was so. Yeah. So what I would like to do now is take everyone into a guided meditation, so that you will have an opportunity to have your own awakening experience. And the meditation will be about 20 minutes long. So I will be holding this intention for you to awaken into an experience of your own divine nature. And what I've found in the past working with people is that their experiences vary quite dramatically. Some have feelings of light or peace or joy, something like you mentioned after the one. Actually, I guess you stepped in even after the meditation, but had this feeling of this deep peace and that kind of energy in the room. That happens for some people. I've had people talk about holding literally balls of light in their hands, or shafts of light, or feeling an exchange of light between myself and them. One woman talked about this sense of having this love that literally filled her from the tip of her toes to the top of her head, and that it was just so delightful she didn't want to come out of meditation. It's like, man, I want to hang on to this forever. So the experiences can be quite, they're quite different. And what I would say is to just keep an open mind and allow, whatever's supposed to happen is going to be perfect for you, and it can vary quite dramatically. So we will begin this guided meditation, like that I mentioned, will be about 20 minutes long. Okay, let's begin with just taking an upright, comfortable posture. Have you put your feet flat on the floor. And we'll begin with taking a couple of long, slow, deep breaths. So breathe in deep. And breathe out long. And breathe in deep. And breathe out long. I want you to bring your attention to your neck and shoulders. Feeling the tension there, just let that go. Just let that part of your body relax. And bring your attention to your arms, upper arms, lower arms, your hands. Just let your hands rest comfortably on your lap or on your legs. Bring attention to your back, to your chest, to your hips and legs. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Feel your feet grounding into the floor, into the earth, down deep into the earth. And allow that energy from the earth to come up through your body. Up into your chest, up into your heart. Up through the top of your head. Let it connect with that beautiful energy above. Now begin to watch your thoughts. Just watch your thoughts like clouds in the sky. Just let them float by. And pay more attention to the blue sky around and behind the clouds. That infinite, deep space. You can also take the image of a stone falling into a lake. Just gently, very, very slowly sinks down to the bottom of the lake into this still, quiet space. If thoughts come up, bring yourself back to the breath and watching the thoughts, but focusing on that deep blue sky. And I will be holding the intention for you to awaken and to serve as a vehicle for this grace bestowing energy to awaken you. So now I will meditate. If you take your time coming out of meditation, slowly bring yourself back into the room. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Would anyone like to share their experience?
I had a lot of experiences. There's so many. You know, one of the really cool things was all the disciples.
All the disciples?
I had all these disciples,
Wow.
just standing around me in front of me. But, you know, I want to give you a message. I had a little, when I was starting to meditate, I had a little discomfort in my head, like a tightness. And I thought, like, I can't relax it. And I kept focusing on it. And I thought, well, I'm just going to send him the pain. And somebody came in and said, he doesn't take your pain. He sends blessings.
Mm.
That's what I heard. I was like, oh, okay, I'll take the blessings. But yeah, it was just a really nice presence. That's what I felt, just a pure state of nothingness,
Right.
yet something.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to?
It's very peaceful.
Uh-huh.
A nice peace of mind that I haven't had in a long time.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. You know, I reflected on something that you mentioned or asked about earlier, was that did I feel like there was some kind of, you know, lineage, and you'd done a channeling session with me, and so that came back to me, and you'd mentioned that for sure I had a lot of these guides, and that I was also very on track. It was like you said that many teachers have a tendency that they get off track and then on track, but you said that I was like, so it's maybe kind of my perfectionist orientation, but it was like, man, I'm going for this and I'm not varying, but I think it did serve me. So it was interesting you asked that, and as I reflect on it, yeah, it truly resonated with me, the things that you told me about, you know, past lives, and these like one was this Macedonian king who sent out his sons to support people in their awakening, and specifically what they needed, and it feels kind of like that's one way that I can serve people too. Is I've had lots of different experiences from different teachers, but help them find what resonates for them, help them find their particular niche, because then we all come back and end up in the same place. Something else that I wanted to mention too was the change in what my life feels like and how I experience it, and much of the time now, life just is a kick in the pants. I mean, it's just like this joy just comes bubbling up, and it's like what's so fascinating about it. It's self-generated. I don't need it from anything. So, I mean, I'll just be walking along, and all of a sudden I'm just laughing or smiling, or I see this. I mean, look at simple things, and there's this beauty that just seems to kind of effervesce. It just kind of comes out of it. But the reason I mention it, I guess, is that it's like I almost feel autonomous and self-contained. Before it was like, here I've got to bring this to me. Now it's like, no, what I can do is share it, and so that's become something that it's wonderful that I can do this. It feels like this is really a way that I stay connected also.
So one of the biggest things I notice is more the meditation than during that I feel differently. Like there is,
Okay.
yeah, that, I mean, there's a lot of things I could talk about during, but after there's this kind of, I don't know, it's like a clarity or vibrancy. Just, it's very subtle, but I think it just, yeah, feel different after the meditation.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Will what your meditation work on the replay if they do it again? Will the energy still be present?
Oh, yes. I see no reason why it wouldn't, right? So, yeah, what I'd like to do next is talk about how do we sustain, how do we maintain this experience, because, you know, it's one thing to have an awakening experience, and I've talked to a lot of people that have, but then it's, you know, if we don't work at it, it can just kind of, seems like it can just kind of fade away. So I ended up being very, very passionate about exactly this once, because like, man, I'm not losing this. This is too good. This is the absolute best thing that could ever happen. It was, I have to say, the ultimate gift or the ultimate prize. And ever since then, this is really what I've been passionate about staying with and understanding. And I mean, I'm just not even interested in local, like a lot of time politics or whatever else is going on, because this brings so much more value and richness and joy to my life. That's one of the ways too that I think that you can sustain this is by the company you keep, and by that I mean the people that you surround yourself with. Like being in the company of the light workers, the other light workers. That, I mean, wow, they talk about uplift your energy, and you feel this immediate connection. It's like they are family. And almost everyone that's, you know, involved in this kind of work, there's that connection. So I'm not much interested in a lot of the other stuff that's going on. It just seems like quite a waste of my energy, even though, you know, I feel like you need to be informed to a certain extent, but not inundated with it, and not trying, have so much stuff going on that you're not going to do anything about. If you're going to be active, that's one thing, and if you're going to be an activist, I think that's great, and we need that. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time and energy in that direction. So one of the things that has been really helpful for me is actually to remember, you know, the awakening experience that I had. I mean, you know, what is the significance of that, and how is it different? Some of those things that I've, you know, shared with you, that life shifted, you know, very dramatically in that regard. So that's helpful to bring me back on track. The meditation itself is something I've done for the last 30 years, and pretty much every day. But it seems to be a great tool to still the mind and to bring me back into that awareness, because in that stillness is this peace that's and the joy and everything else, that it's just, that's where it comes up out of. Meditation is a great tool, I think. There was one teacher that mentioned something I thought was kind of a good way to look at it, and he said, every day take a broom and sweep your heart. And it kind of feels like that's what I'm doing, is like kind of cleaning it out and getting ready for the day. I wouldn't not meditate, because it's kind of like, when I don't, the day definitely is not quite the same. So it is a way to refresh myself and to come, you know, come at the day in a very much more positive way. So I believe that, and if you look at in meditation itself, there are lots of tools there that may not be, you know, real obvious, but one is breathing, you know, the deep breathing. Abdominal breathing physiologically has been proven to really quiet and still and create even a chemistry in our body that's more relaxing. And so that's a very simple thing we can do during the day, is just take time to to take a few slow, deep breaths. Bringing attention to different areas of your body and letting your body relax, that is definitely a way to, if we still our body, we still our mind. So it's another simple tool that we can use. Probably the one that I find most useful is the witness, or watching my thoughts, like watching them as clouds in the sky, and then focusing on that deep space that's underneath that's behind it. Even like when you're following that stone as it slowly sinks down into the bottom of the water, and then there's this quiet, still space down below there. That is what holds the peace, and so that's another tool that's very, very effective. When I was speaking about the witness, there's a quote that I really like from Eckhart Tolle, and he says that the beginning of freedom is the realization that you're not the thinker. And the moment you start watching the thinker, a higher level of consciousness becomes available. And there's also this vast realm of intelligence that's beyond thought. That thought is only a tiny aspect of that. And as we all the things that we're really looking for, the peace, the joy, the happiness, the creativity, they arise from beyond the mind. And then that's when you actually begin to awaken. But what I really do like about that is that it's so true, for me at least. This is not something that the mind can grasp, which is kind of cool in a way too, because it doesn't need to. Fact is, it appears for me, we need to still it and transcend it to get past it. Even if I notice if I watch thoughts, if I just watch the thoughts, then immediately there's this separation. There's all this activity over here, and then there's this observing presence that's watching it. And this is where I want to stand. This is where I want to be. Do you have a question?
Yeah, that's one question, because I have a lot of people
who will ask, how do I get rid of my thoughts during meditation? So what I'm hearing you say is you're not really getting rid of the thoughts. Right. You're letting the thoughts be there.
And that's
and
exactly
you're
right.
Observing.
Yeah, you start, well, it's like, there's this sort of joke about meditation, and somebody will say, well, don't think about monkeys. Well, guess what? That's all you can think about is monkeys. And you're not going to stop that. What I find is the observing presence is really what can, release those thoughts. And an acceptance of no matter what the thought is, whether it's a positive or a negative. Sometimes we think it's just the negative thoughts, but I would venture to say it's all thoughts, because we actually want to get beyond that. We want to get in that thought-free state, because that's what holds the essence of what we're looking for. So those are. Yes, I really like that quote, and I love that concept of watching, because immediately there's this separation, and then there's all this play, all this stuff going on over here, but there's also this presence that's just watching it. It doesn't have to get all mixed up in this. You can choose to, if you want to follow. There may be thoughts you want to follow them. Go right ahead, but if you allow all of this, you're going to be. Well, almost all of us understand, once you get caught up in that, it just keeps going and going. There's another concept that I really like that Eckhart talked about. As you can probably tell, I'm kind of partial to Eckhart Tolle, because I think he's a phenomenal teacher. But he also says that when you surrender to what is and so become fully present, that the past ceases to have any power, and the realm of being opens up, and the realm of being that was obscured by the mind opens up, and then suddenly there's this space, or this stillness that arises, and then in that stillness is the peace, and is the joy, and is the love, And then beyond that is the sacred, the immeasurable, that which cannot even be named. But what I really like about that kind of quote is it kind of speaks to accepting everything, whether it's a positive or a negative thought, and when you accept that, then you can be here in present moment. And what I've really noticed is that when we can be in the present moment, then it's all right here, and actually that's all there is. There is no such thing as and Eckhart talks about that a lot, there's no such thing as the past and the future. Even when we think about it, we're thinking about it now. And so what we want to do is step into that present moment, and everything that we're looking for is there. And it's the only place it can be. But so much of the time it's awful easy to get caught in one or the other. So whatever we can do to drop into that, and I think that is, when he says surrender to what is, that really is beneficial. There's another quote actually this is from the Tao Te Ching, and which was an ancient Chinese scripture, and it says, "Be content with what you have, rejoice in the way things are. When you realize you lack nothing, the whole world belongs to you." And that kind of speaks back to be content with what you have, because you have it all. Instead of thinking, "Oh, I got to get this," no, the truth is it's already there. But you have to remind yourself, I think, at times, or I certainly have to remind myself, that be content with this, because what else do you need? I don't need for anything else. I had kind of a interesting practical application of this acceptance when I was working on this talk, and I was really challenged to somehow find the words. I mean, I went days trying to get the words out, and there was this amazing amount of resistance to actually speaking. And I would, try all the tricks and everything that I had to try to get through that. And one night, and this was, I was probably just hours, it was getting to be really late, and I needed to get the recording done, and realized that I don't know what to do. I mean, this is impossible. But in that, finally accepting the fact that I didn't know the answer, about an hour later, all of a sudden, the doors opened up, the window opened up, and I could see this resistance on either side, but I could then walk through it. And what appeared to happen was that I really did accept the fact that I didn't know. And then that allowed a deeper understanding to come in. I've also noticed in the past, even when I had cases that were very difficult cases in my dental practice, that if I was willing to just go to bed that night and just give it up, say, I don't know what to do, by morning all of a sudden it got all sorted out. And I think that that's when we step into this higher sense of knowing. But it's definitely it doesn't come from our ordinary ABC, gonna figure it all out. But it's really, it's so much more creative. And the answers sometimes are so simple. It's like, what do you mean? Is that really possible? But it is, and but you can't see your way through it. So it's nice to be able to tap into that energy. So yeah, lots of different ways to stay connected. Those are just a few. So the other thing I'd like to talk about a little bit is how do we expand our understanding, because there's also, that's another level. And one of the ways I think that's really been beneficial for me is to have what do I call a partner in belief. And it's even better if you got more than that. And certainly in the light workers, there's more than that. So it's surrounding yourself again with people that are really looking for looking for answers and trying to expand their already awakened state. But there's so much available now, like the Michaela's YouTube videos and Eckhart Tolle's and all myriad of different Adishanti, all these different speakers, and very profound teachers. So those are great resources. And then coming to these seminars or clinics, you can tell I'm a dentist. Where'd that one come from? So yeah, so many opportunities, and what's really I think is so exciting is, man, it's unlimited. The potential is just off the charts. I mean, when we tap into Source itself, I mean, the sky is the limit, and it's so fun and so joyful to really do this together, and to have so many people now involved in this. And there certainly are a lot more people involved. So yeah, that's pretty much what I got tonight. So, anybody have any other questions or comments? Or?
Do you still practice dentistry?
No, I retired about a year ago, and I'd practiced for 47 years, and after I quit, it's like, well, what do I do now? Well, kind of the obvious answer was what you're passionate about, and this is what I'm passionate about, because it feels like, I mean, it's ultimately, for me at least, it's the only game in town. Everything else just falls so short of this that why not? And if I can help even a few people, not necessarily have this wild awakening experience, but even just to open the door, because once that door is open, then you can continue to expand, and so that's so yeah. To answer your question, that's well, thank you very much. My son, maybe not so much, because he would like to have me back in the practice, but especially right now when he's trying to transition with some new staff and a new dentist. But we had a great run together. I mean, we just thoroughly enjoyed the practice, and I thoroughly enjoyed my patients. And like I think I mentioned before, they actually had a lot of fun. I did too, which is like, what? The dentist? That's unheard of. But it was a great run. So anybody else have anything? No? Great. Okay, we'll close then. Namaste.